Hi Year 10, welcome to Biomes Lesson 2. Today we'll be looking at a couple of different things, including the nature and rate of change in ecosystems, and how climate change can impact ecosystems too. We started this at the end of last term, so some of you might have a few notes on parts of this PowerPoint. If you do, you can just skip through to what you're up to. If you were away or are missing anything, please start from the beginning. When we talk about change in ecosystems, change can occur in two different ways, at two different rates. We have gradual change that happens very slowly over time. We have catastrophic change that happens really quickly or instantly. These two types of change can occur concurrently in one ecosystem, or you might see the occurrence of one over the other. Gradual changes, such as changes in water temperature, happen really slowly. They might be because of climate change or because of another aspect impacting the ecosystem. Catastrophic changes happen really quickly. They're instantaneous effects. Natural causes might be things like a cyclone or a bushfire. Human-induced causes could be something like an oil spill or some sort of pollution issue. This table lists a wide range of catastrophic and gradual changes that might affect an ecosystem. You need to have a couple of examples from each category. You'll find that for your specific ecosystem case study, some of these are more relevant than others, so pick the ones you list down carefully. In class, we're looking specifically at the ecosystem of the Great Barrier Reef, and we're going to have a look at a few different types of change that occur on the reef. The reef is an incredibly large structure, so there's lots of different areas that change can occur. Changes can be daily, weekly, monthly, annually, or one-off. Some of the gradual changes that occur on the reef are normally from human-induced climate change. These might alter the water temperature, the migration of species or invasive species, and these are all really slow changes that happen over many, many years. Catastrophic changes that can occur on the reef include things like tropical cyclones, which are natural, and pollution spills, which are human-induced. These catastrophic changes require really quick management from people looking after the reef because they can cause damage incredibly quickly. It's much harder to manage the gradual effects, the gradual changes, because it takes a while for patterns to be seen of the change actually occurring. So it's better to take preventative measures, in this case, to try and prevent that change from happening at all. Changes in climate are a significant impactor of change on the reef. Now, the definition in red at the top, you need to write out in full, but everything else you can summarize. So climate involves the temperature, humidity, rainfall, snow, sunlight, and other weather features over long periods of time. Therefore, any change to the climate would be considered a gradual change. These changes are still going to affect ecosystems though, and we're going to look specifically at some ways that changes to climate impacts the Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef is located in the tropical region, an equatorial region we would say, and it has a distinct wet and dry season. Because of that, we get really, really wet rain seasons and really, really dry seasons. During that wet season, we get a lot of cyclone activity. And cyclones are caused by low pressure systems off the coast that hit tropical airtime masses, and they can bring serious destruction to the reef. Cyclones can damage the coral because they bring in other bits of rock and sediment that can break the coral down. It also causes really strong storm surges and waves, which can crush and break the coral as well. This can rip the coral apart and damage habitats for other marine creatures. It can also result in coral being buried by sediment, and this increases the turbidity of the water. Back in our first lesson where we started learning about the Great Barrier Reef, I gave you a handout that showed you the optimal coral conditions, and having clear water is one of them. So having really murky, sandy water can impact the coral's ability to photosynthesize and breathe and feed. Lots of rain can also change the amount of salinity that's in the water. So lots of fresh water coming from rainfall will decrease the salinity or the salt levels, which again can impact the coral. In a moment, I'm going to show you a picture of the reef that demonstrates how the cyclones can impact water quality. Tropical Cyclone Debbie was one of the biggest cyclones that impacted the Great Barrier Reef. It was a Category 4, which is the highest category, and caused widespread damage to the reef. Other negative impacts that can come from cyclones include things like runoff that occurs from plantations and farms down creek. This can bring nitrogen and phosphorus and other fertilizers into the water, which also doesn't suit the coral's needs. Here's an image of before and after Tropical Cyclone Debbie at the Great Barrier Reef. We can see prior to the cyclone, we had fairly clear water, which would have been optimal for coral conditions. However, after the cyclone, we can see there's lots and lots of sand and sediment that has been washed into the reef. This is both being stirred up from the seabed and also being brought in from the creeks, rivers and streams that run into the water. All this sand and sediment changes the turbidity and salinity of the water, which impacts the coral. Now it's your turn. You need to complete questions 5 to 7 on your Biomes worksheet. This is also detailed for you on due work on Schoolbox. You need to complete the questions on the Google Doc you set up last term. Once you have completed the questions, please submit Done or Complete to Schoolbox as part of the due work. I'll then be able to go onto your Google Doc and have a look at your answers. Once I've done that, I'll send you my sample answers for each question, and you need to mark each one. You need to mark them carefully and you need to be honest. Only you and I will see those marks, and it's a good chance for you to reflect and help you prepare for your assessment task in week 7. When you finish marking your work, you'll have time to work on your ecosystem case study, the one that you chose for yourself last term. You should have a separate Google Doc set up for this. If you have trouble finding either Google Doc, please let me know and I should be able to reshare them with you from Google Drive. That's it for today. Please make sure you answer the questions to the best of your ability and then spend some time on your case study.